On today's show, the ramp up to the second round against the Indiana Pacers continues. John Fanta of Fox Sports stops by. We talk everything about the first round and what we're watching for in the second round against the Pacers. That's all straight ahead right here on Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers. Places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. And I just want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's Locked On NBA at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. John Fanta, friend of the show. You know him from Fox Sports college basketball coverage. You know him from Field of 68. You know him just from being a Clevelander. He was on a couple of weeks ago before the Cavs took on the Miami Heat. Brought him back, had another great conversation about everything that happened in that first round series, what we learned from it. We talk about Darius Garland and why the Cavs are better with him, but they're different without him, and so much more on today's edition of the show. I really think you're going to enjoy this conversation. John is the best, one of my favorite guests to have on. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop talking and we're going to bring John on, and here is that conversation. Well, you know, John Fanta couldn't resist coming back to Locked On Cavs. He was here before the Cavs took on the Miami Heat, so of course he wanted to come back before the Cavs take on the Indiana Pacers. We've got so much to get to, John, between what happened for the Cavs, I think particularly in Miami in games 3 and 4. I know you and I were texting, and I don't think we were surprised the Cavs won. I think the way they won was a little bit surprising. We've been texting throughout all these games, all postseason long, but there's a lot to get to. But just kind of want to start before we move on to what the Pacers present for the Cavs in terms of challenges. Let's go inside our text messages and what we talked about, because I don't think either of us expected the Cavs to go to Miami and win 2 games by a combined 92 points.
And 4 games by a combined 122 points. Danny, it was really remarkable what they did. And if we go inside our text messages throughout the series, I think one word comes to mind: physicality. The Cavaliers were intense. They were ready. They were engaged. They took away the paint from the Miami Heat. They did not let Miami get anything easy out in South Beach outside of the first 3 minutes of the game when Miami led 15-6. You pointed it out on X of what the Cavs did from there, and it was absolutely what that note again.
100 from so Miami led game 3 15-6. For the rest of the series, the Cavs outscored the Heat by 101 points, which, like, if you just isolated that, it was roughly 90 minutes. If you just isolated those 90 minutes, that is one of the largest series differentials in NBA history. Like, it was incredible. It was remarkable. I'm still not over the fact that I was sitting there shocked. Like, I had my face in my hands because I could not believe the fashion in which the Cavs made the Miami Heat quit and just they destroyed Heat culture. That's what they did.
They did. The funeral was held Monday in South Beach. There wasn't a hefty gathering of people either. You could hear yourself think in that building. You're not going to be able to hear yourself think at Rocket Arena on Sunday night. But I think for the Cavs, it was apparent in game 4 that Miami had the most epic 1-2-3 Cancun I've ever seen watching NBA playoff games. And that's why Saturday, to me, was super impressive. Because if you watch the first 8 quarters of this series, it was clear which quarter Miami was the most in sync on the offensive end of the floor. And that was the 4th quarter of game 2, where Cleveland could not get a stop. Miami was getting dribble penetration. They were burying threes, and they were getting it from all over offensively. So I remember coming out of game 2 thinking, all right, this series is going to end in 5. Miami's probably going to get one, Danny. And
Right.
it's by virtue of just they found something offensively. Maybe the Cavs without Garland show they're human. They blink. Mitchell has a rough game. Well, the irony is, didn't have Garland Saturday. Mitchell has a cool performance. He goes 4 for 14. And they won the game by 37 points. That is staggering. It's a reflection of the culture that the Cavs have. It's a reflection of their depth. I mean, for me, what I look at it is, I think with this team, you have such a nice blend. Remember when we talked for a while about, like, can Evan Mobley and Jared Allen coexist? And, like, one thing is for certain. Jared Allen is as responsible for the camaraderie and chemistry and good vibes in that locker room as anybody. He sets a tone. He plays hard. He doesn't care when he gets the shine or not. He's perfect for Cleveland, like that Players Tribune article listed. Evan Mobley, I'm just amazed at what he does to shut people down defensively, and it rubs off on other people. But to me, what this team has now that they didn't have before, they've got a really reliable, and I'm not saying all 3 of these guys are doing it, but they've got a nice mix between a Max Strus, Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill. It's part of the formula. And now Danny Cunningham, what we're seeing, it's almost like it took him time to calibrate for the playoffs. But now DeAndre Hunter is calibrated. And now he's figuring out, here's my role for this basketball team in the postseason. Rather quietly, but the last 2 games, 40 points combined, 4 assists, starting to figure things out, getting good shots off, taking high percentage shots. Hunter showed as the series went on just how much of a problem he's going to be for the opposition. And he may very well, and I think you agree, if we go inside our text messages, we both believe DeAndre Hunter can cause lots of problems for the Indiana Pacers.
Today's show brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it can be easy to lose track of all that cash. Well, that's where Monarch Money comes in, because they'll be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending right in one place. So you can stop just managing your money and you can start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, because I all know we've got them, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for those long-term goals that I know you have. Plus, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON NBA for half off your first year. Again, monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA. Today's show is also brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the All-Stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain is easier. Managing logistics is easier. Responding to price changes is easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, they'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hard-working minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success at easierwithepicor.com. That is easierwithepicor.com. I think he is going to be one of the keys to this series. And I think that this is And, John, before the series against the Heat, I kind of felt like, you know what, you can just throw all these regular season matchups that the two teams had because of the whole Jimmy Butler situation going on in Miami, the trade the Cavs made. Like, it was just not a fair thing to look at those three matchups. And the Cavs and Pacers played 4 times. 2 of them were in January in back-to-back games, which was, of course, before the Cavs trade for DeAndre Hunter. And then the final 2 times were the last day of the regular season when Jarrett Allen played 41 seconds, and that was really the only rotation player that saw the floor for the Cavs. And they played a couple days before that when the only starter for the Cavs that played was also Jarrett Allen, who played 15 minutes. So I look at this matchup and say, okay, if you want to take something away from the 2 games in January, maybe like the Pacers did a good job, I thought, putting pressure on the basketball with Garland and Mitchell. I also thought that was kind of at a time where the Cavs were out of gas after that win over OKC that they had in what was at that point the game of the year in the NBA. But I look at this again and say, man, Pascal Siakam had a great game in the second game they played, but DeAndre Hunter was still a member of the Hawks at that point. Like, George Niang was playing rotation minutes for the Cavs. Karis LeVert was a big part of the formula. Those guys aren't here. And now they've been replaced with somebody who I think fits so much better. And I think that if you want to take away one thing from the series against the Heat, other than the fact that the Cavs just absolutely beat the brakes off them, it's that DeAndre Hunter really fits in. And one of the things that I think gets overlooked is practice time matters, right? Like and the Cavs, from the time they acquired DeAndre Hunter until the end of the regular season, had, I believe, 1 practice inside Cleveland Clinic Courts, their team facility in Independence, Ohio. 1 practice from February 7th was the trade deadline, I believe it was, until the end of the season on April 13th. That's a really long time to not have much practice time. So with Hunter, trying to get him acclimated, trying to get him to fit in, know everything, find a level of comfort, that's a really difficult thing to do in actual games. And then you see him, have a couple of practices before the Miami series and look much better. And then, he's going to have, we are recording this at 3:30 on Thursday. I just got back from practice. The Cavs are going to have a few more practices before they open up the series against the Pacers. I think that those things, we might not recognize the value of them, but I think that we saw the dividends pay off, particularly in games 3 and 4 for Hunter for the Cavs.
100% you did. You saw familiarity play a real part in just picking up steam, knowing your role. And sometimes this is where blowouts are very beneficial because it allows you to work on yourself. And you can look at different things. And I'm just, every time Kenny Atkinson is on camera, he's got the same look on his face that's like, I am not done with this until we win the game. And I love it from Kenny. He's got this attitude. Donovan Mitchell has the same attitude. To your point, back in January when the Cavs and Pacers met for the first time and Indiana won 108-93. That was a game in which that was back on January the 12th.
Yeah.
Sam Merrill and Max Strus shot a combined 2 for 11. Isaac Okoro played 18 minutes and did not contribute anything offensively. George Niang played 20 minutes in that game. But the Cavs, they don't look anywhere the same from a rotation standpoint to the degree that they're playing with now. And in that game, Indiana, to their credit, defensively made Garland and Mitchell work. And Garland had 7 assists, so he played pretty well. He had 4 turnovers, but he was able to find people. But they shot a combined 14 for 33. That's not going to happen in a playoff game. And I think, in that game, in those games early on, here's the other thing. The last 2 times they played were late in the season where clearly the Cavs showed that all those arguments that people were making of, did they peak too early? Did it happen too soon? Come on. The playoffs are a different monster. And whether anybody wants to hear it or not, the Cavs knew they were getting the 1 seed, and it wasn't the worst thing in the world to lose 4 in a row. And your mindset, it's human nature. I mean, the regular season finale, a double overtime game discount. You're 114.
I was mad it went to double overtime. As somebody who wanted to get home from a game that mattered nothing, I was mad it went to double overtime.
Yeah, I mean, and the game before that, you had Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland didn't play. So, come on. You can't equivocate. Honestly, it's a better thing that they didn't play, Danny, because Indiana doesn't have recent tape or film. They have it in the Miami series. But think about this, Danny Cunningham. The Cavaliers didn't have to release all the tricks up their sleeve in that series.
And I think that matters too, as the Pacers are preparing, because listen, and Rick Carlisle, I think, is a really good coach over in Indiana. I do. But the Cavs, I think, in this is one of the things that I took away from the Miami series, John, is I didn't know what Kenny Atkinson was going to be like in a postseason setting, right? Like he had made the playoffs with Brooklyn, never won a series as head coach of the Nets. He was on the bench with Steve Kerr in Golden State for some deep playoff runs. He was on the bench with the Clippers alongside Tyronn Lue for a year. So like he's been there, but he's not been running the show. And the adjustments that he made defensively going from game Cleveland to game 3 in Miami, I think should be something that is super encouraging, that no matter what the plan is that the opponent has, and the Pacers are going to want to run, they're going to want to do a lot of different things for Tyrese Haliburton, for Pascal Siakam. I think there should be a lot of trust in Kenny Atkinson that he's going to have a plan to stop it.
Exactly. And that's what you need in the playoffs, because at some point, and look, you could play great defense and it could get beat. That's the reality. I was thinking about this, and here's the best example. Like, it's staring us point blank in the face, right? I think the Cavaliers will advance to the next round. Whether they do it in 5 or 6 games, we'll see. We'll see. I could see it going 6 games. That's because I respect Rick Carlisle and the Indiana Pacers, and they made the conference finals last year. So Cleveland, don't take the Cavs aren't, but nobody should be taking Indiana lightly. That team's tough. They got a chip on their shoulder, and Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam are dogs, and they play hard, and they get up in you, and they make plays happen. But your game plan that you just used against Miami, the game plan against Indiana is going to be different. And let's just say, Danny, you say, all right, through 2 series, you say, man, the Cavaliers have owned the paint in this postseason, and they're hitting threes. Guess what? If you walk into a series with the Boston Celtics, I don't care how much real estate you've owned in the paint, because all Boston does is launch at will, and they're going to bury you from there, or at least that is their game plan. So Kenny's going to have to tinker with that and be ready to guard the 3-point line. And an Atkinson-Mazzulla series would be really just amazing basketball, and I think terrific scheming for each other, where you've got to develop a formula where at some point, and people are thinking, I'm sure Rick Carlisle's up at night thinking about this, you got to pick your poison with the best offenses in the league. And it's probably going to come down to that at the end of the day. You could have the right scheme, and it does not matter. Ask the 2016 Warriors if they expected in Game 7 when they went up by 11 for J.R. Smith to knock down a couple of clutch shots and for Iman Shumpert to deliver something out of nowhere, from time to time in that series. You don't plan. The other night, the Indiana Pacers did not plan on Gary Trent having over 30 points in one of the best playoff performances we have seen. That's the playoffs.
You are spot on about that. And it's going to be somebody, and maybe it's Hunter, maybe it's Max Strus, maybe it's Dean Wade, maybe it's Sam Merrill, but it's going to be somebody for the Cavs that's going to have that type of performance. Maybe not a 30-plus point game, but I wouldn't be surprised in the least bit. And maybe I'm just going to keep coming back to DeAndre Hunter because I think he's the most talented of that group. But at some point in the playoffs, one of those guys is going to win you a game. Now, they didn't need to do that in the first round, partially because 2 of those games were just laughers. So like DeAndre Hunter played great. Maybe Ty Jerome is part of this, and he was a big reason why the Cavs won game 1 with 28 points. But I look at that as saying, okay, the Cavs have gone from a situation where they were thin on the wing to now they have wealth on the wing because of Hunter, because of how good he is, because of how much better I think he is now than when he got to Cleveland, even though he was just shooting the cover off the basketball for like the first 10 games or so that he was a member of the Cavs. But at some point, one of those guys is going to have a big game. Max Strus had really good moments too against Miami. But ultimately, I look at this and say the Cavs have so much depth. And John, I'm very curious your thoughts on this, because you bring up 2016. And I think so much of the playoffs at that time was, well, who has the best player in this series? And that team more often than not is going to win, because you can bring up the J.R. Smith stuff, the Iman Shumpert stuff, but the best player in that series was LeBron James by a wide margin. He led that series in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. He did it all. He was by far the best. I think we are getting to the point, because of how much talent there is in the NBA, it might matter more who the worst rotation player is in the series. Because if I look at the depth the Cavs have, and the Pacers have good depth too, they have a lot of guys that are good. Aaron Nesmith, very good. Nembhard, really good. Obviously, Pascal Siakam, not a depth piece. He's a star type player. But they've got a lot of good players. But you get to like number 9, number 10 for the Cavs, you're talking about Dean Wade, who I think is a starting caliber player on a conference finals team. And he's getting like 15 minutes a night. Isaac Okoro, I think, could be a starting player or like a 6th, 7th guy on a conference finals level team. Yes. And that to me is where I think the Cavs have one of the biggest advantages.
It's absolutely where they do, especially in this series. Now, the series to me comes down to how much do you keep Tyrese Haliburton? I'm talking about the Cavs defense here. How much do you keep him as a scorer and not a guy who's getting 9 to 12 assists in this series in a game? He is going to have a double-digit assist performance, if not multiple. That's going to happen in this series.
Absolutely,
yes. It is, and it's probably going to happen in the game or 2 games that the Pacers win. But, and it might, this is where adjustments matter too, right? It's a series. By the way, if you're playing these games in the sports gambling mode, I've been looking at this stuff all throughout the playoffs in every series. My advice to you would be this. Just take the dog, because everybody's like, well, that's over. The Knicks Pistons has been over 5 times. The series is in game 6 as we're recording this podcast. And everyone's like, well, the Knicks are screwed going into Detroit. They're going to be in a daunting atmosphere. They were in a daunting atmosphere. They should have lost game 4, but they ended up winning games 3 and 4. So Just when you think you know it all, you don't, because of what you just stated. The rotations matter more. Whether that's sexy to the debate topic shows in the morning or not is a different story. But I find it refreshing because it should matter. Should matter how your roster's built out. And teams have evolved. Playing styles have evolved. Ask the Lakers how things went for them, just essentially relying on 2 stars who wore down. And then it's a big mystery whether or not you're going to get contributions from others. The Warriors are realizing it in real time, Danny. They're like, we got to get Brandon Podziemski and Buddy Hield involved to win this series. And they have gotten involved. The Cavaliers don't have to figure that out. They've got it figured out. And what's great is what we talked about the first time you and I talked about this team. They could win with plan D, with plan E, with plan F, with plan. So the Cavs have more pieces than virtually anybody outside of the Thunder, and that they're matched up there. Like Cleveland's pieces. Yeah, Boston's got great pieces at the top. Cleveland's got more pieces to their puzzle, in my humble opinion. I believe that. Now, Tatum and Brown, tough. No question about it. But and this is what leads me to my next point that I want to make sure I get in on this show right here, right now. To the people out there who are suggesting that the Cleveland Cavaliers are better without Darius Garland, that is the biggest load of hogwash and BS I have heard in a long, long time. And I have been someone who has said DG's got to step up because I know what he means to this team and how much they're counting on him. That's why I say it. Now, I've challenged him at times, and I think he's I think he's gotten better. He's not accepting my challenge. He doesn't care what I say. But I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him and the player that he's turned into. Folks, consider it a luxury in the different ways you can play. Don't automatically equate that because you blew out the Heat in back-to-back games that all of a sudden Miami quit in game 4 and they quit for the last 3 quarters of game 3. And that has to do with the Cavs as a whole, Garland included. We like to create debates where sometimes, Danny, there are none. Darius Garland, for the Cavaliers to win a title, Darius Garland's going to have to be the best Darius Garland we've seen. That's matter of fact. And if he's not on the floor, the Cleveland Cavaliers aren't even reaching the NBA Finals.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think that argument, one, is a ridiculous argument. Like, it absolutely is a ridiculous argument. And Kyle Anderson of the Miami Heat talked about Darius not being on the floor and the Cavs looking better. I don't think that has anything at all to do with Darius Garland. I think part of it has to do with, as you mentioned, the Miami Heat quitting for the final 7 quarters of that series. But part of it too is the Cavs played bigger, and that they had Dean Wade and DeAndre Hunter and Max Strus on the floor with Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell. Guess what? They can do that when Darius Garland's available. What I think this might mean, and I don't know if it's going to matter in this series specifically, but I think it will matter in the future if the Cavs do get past the Pacers, which we both expect them to do. But I think that there are times they need to play fewer 2-guard lineups. Does that mean less Darius Garland? No. I actually think that might mean less Ty Jerome, right? Like that might mean more, maybe it's less Donovan and Darius together, but they're still playing their regular amount of minutes. But instead of spending all of the minutes, which the Cavs do when they're fully healthy, spending all of the minutes having 2 guards on the floor, maybe you're shifting some of those minutes to, okay, we're going to go with a 1-guard, 3-wing, 1-big lineup that has Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, and the 3 wings that you just can't score on. Like that, I think, is the thing the Cavs discovered. Maybe not discovered. I can't say that they wouldn't have done this anyways. It's a very small sample size without Darius and a very small sample size in the playoffs. But I don't think that has anything to do with Darius Garland not being on the floor. It has everything to do with the Cavs not playing 2 guards at once. You can still do that when Garland's available. It has nothing to do with him not being out there.
Has Kenny been asked about it? About just maybe if they found anything or anything within that?
So he was asked at practice about, the Darius Garland, the narrative that Kyle Anderson kind of started, right? That the Cavs are better without him. He says, no, we're not better. Like we need Darius to do all the things that he does. He's the team's closer. He was there. I know both he and Donovan got votes for Clutch Player of the Year, but he was the highest finishing vote getter for Clutch Player of the Year, an award that Jalen Brunson won on the Cavs. And they really like the pace that he brings, the stop-start stuff. Like he can do things that nobody else on the Cavs can do. Donovan Mitchell can do things that nobody else on the Cavs can do. Ty Jerome can also do things that nobody else on the Cavs can do.
Evan Mobley can do things nobody else does.
Right. Exactly. But more so speaking just like guard specific things because Evan absolutely is there. But I just don't know that that's pertinent to the Darius Garland discussion. But what he brings, they can't replace. And are they maybe a better rebounding team when he's not on the floor or a little bit better defensively? Sure. But I do think that discovering those 3-wing lineups that we saw them play without Darius can still work. Like say you play Jared Allen with Strus or Okoro, depending on the matchup, Wade and Hunter, and then Darius Garland is your guard. That's a really good lineup too. Just Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley don't need to be on the floor. To me, what stands out is the wings doing what they did. And that is the thing that I take away from Darius missing time. Not to, the Cavs are better without Darius. No, they were different without Darius. And that's something that can be replicated with him.
Yes. This is like, have you seen the movie Kicking and Screaming?
I have not. I'm aware of it, but I have not seen it.
So I hope that the listeners can get this, but Will Ferrell has a joke, okay? And the joke goes that there's 2 parents of a kid who happen to be straight, and there's 2 parents of another kid who are 2 moms. And Will Ferrell looks at the moms and says, "You're better parents. You're better parents." And the other 2 parents are standing there in the parking lot, and they're going, "What do you mean better? I thought we were okay too." He goes, "No, better, different though." And the 2 moms goes, "Different? What do you mean by that?" He goes, "Better, but different in a better way." So hopefully somebody who's seen the movie out there that's listening to this, different in a better way, but better in it's all relative. This team has the pieces that on a given night, it could be a different 5-man rotation that's in there, whether that's 2 people off the bench, whether that's playing through a Jerome playing. See, this is part of the other thing, and you know this well because you cover this team daily. Because of Jerome's performance in game 1, everybody, like the casuals, need more Jerome. And look, I love Ty Jerome. But like we said after that, And I think Ty would say the same thing. And Kenny Atkinson would certainly say the same thing. That's not going to happen every single night. He could have another performance like that in this upcoming series, but that's part of the beauty of this team. Whereas when you look at the Pacers, you do sit here and say to yourself, it's got to be Tyrese Haliburton. It's got to be Pascal Siakam. Neesmith's got to be able to knock down shots and rebound the basketball. But when you get past those three, Andrew Nembhard's really important. And I think that's just it. Here's the deal. Haliburton and Nembhard are both very talented, good at generating pace. They're dangerous in transition. The Cavs got to keep Indiana in the half court. I thought Indiana's best basketball came against the Bucks when they got out on the run. They got open looks. Their offense can be potent. But what folks? You think that the answer to that in this next series is always going to be the likes of Max Strus and Dean Wade and I know that the wing play was good, but no, great guard play answers great guard play. And Darius Garland's going to be counted on to supply that. Now, the question that I have is, do you think he plays Sunday?
I do think so. So he was on the floor after practice on Thursday, going through some light stuff. He was going through shooting. He was doing some change of direction stuff. Obviously, toe injuries can be a little bit tricky. Kenny Atkinson wouldn't commit either way. He said he went through practice but didn't do any of the contact portions of practice. And there are a couple of days for him to, get that back fully healed. I would be marginally surprised if he does not play on Sunday. I think that he will be back and ready. But I don't think that this is something that the Cavs think is going to linger much past Sunday if it does. I would be more surprised if he does not play by Tuesday. But I ultimately do think, John, that he will be back on the floor Sunday. How's he going to look? I have no idea. But I do think that he's doing everything he can to be on the floor. Donovan Mitchell spoke about him, and typically you will actually get a little bit more, I think, out of players, like other players, about injuries for teammates than you will coaches. And the way Donovan spoke about Darius is that, ideally he's going to be out there Sunday. And I would be surprised if that's not the case.
Yeah, which is good because they're going to need him, and he's going to play an important role. I have a hot take heading into this series before people start panicking. I'm just going to prepare everybody now. So my big bad bull prediction in this series is that the Indiana Pacers will take one of the first two games in said series, and people could freak out and probably will freak out. And then I think the Cavaliers just end up being the better team in this series and could win it in 5 or 6 games. And if it goes to a 6th game, again, it's because I respect the heck out of what Indiana is. I think that the Pacers' defense is flawed, and the Cavs right now, to me, have the best offense in the playoffs. I wouldn't take anybody over them right now collectively.
Well, I mean, they posted the best offensive rating in any series in NBA playoff history, so that's no hot take there.
No, it just feels like, though, and I think you would. I don't know if you relate to this or not. Does it not still feel like that the national person? Now this is Locked On Cavs, but it still feels like to me, and some people are starting to come around. Like I've seen some of it this week of like Cleveland is the best team in the East, but it still feels like the national people, the majority of them, believe that the Boston Celtics are going to win the Eastern Conference in 6 games. Maybe it goes to a 7th game, but there's just people believe that the reigning champions and Danny, that's part of being a reigning champ. Like you have the crown until someone takes it from you, but it's a dream start for the Cavs. Yeah, they faced a little bit of adversity against Miami, particularly in game 2. This is my belief system is this, Danny. They could face a form of adversity that is nowhere near what they've faced thus far. And perhaps the first time they face it, they actually suffer a defeat. But it allows them to, again, recover. And what's you always wonder this about any team in the playoffs. What happens when you take your first playoff loss?
Yes.
And here's the difference. Like a lot of teams, and this is what ends up leading to them losing. They don't make any adjustments. They continue to do the same thing over and over again, and then you wonder why you lost. Again, why rotations matter in 2025 NBA basketball. the Cavaliers can make honest adjustments. Now, in some of these situations, particularly I'm looking at the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, that doesn't mean those adjustments are going to necessarily work because just how great the opponent is. But that's part of the risk you take. The good news for the Cavs is there's a lot of different things they can tweak. So I'm not a hater at all. The Cavaliers are winning this series. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if they lose one of those first two games and it ends up being a good thing that happens for them because that's part of the playoffs. And Indiana, to me, is fearless. They are a fearless team. Remember, a year ago, they should have beaten Boston at least once. They had Boston beat twice, and they couldn't win either of those two games. It should it shoulda, woulda, coulda. That series could have been 2-2 just as easily as it was 4-0.
100%. You are 100% right. The Pacers are tested. They're a good team. I think that this is going to be a really good series. And John, I think that this was a really good podcast, man. Very much appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to hop on Locked On Cavs and get these takes off. This is a blast as always.
The only thing I wish is that the Cavaliers were waiting for the Pistons or the Knicks, or that they, as the 1 seed, could request who they play in round 2, because neither one of those two teams holds a candle to the Celtics or the Cavaliers. So the 1 seed did end up getting the tougher draw of the top two. But this Cavs team will get through it. And you know why, Danny? Yeah, they had the historic offensive performance. It's because the Cleveland Cavaliers don't get pushed around anymore, and they've got real depth.
You couldn't be more correct about that. You can check out John College Basketball on Fox, Field of 68. You can find him on X at John_Fanta. And of course, he is from right here in good old Cleveland, Ohio. John, thanks so much, man.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate you.
And thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, as we get out of here, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back a little bit later talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.